This audio is an AI-generated, quote, podcast conversation, unquote, as summary and commentary of my article, How Bullying Negatively Impacts Us as Children and Adults and How to Help.
Ever get that like pit in your stomach feeling? Like when you just knew something wasn't right? Maybe you saw someone, being picked on or felt that sting yourself, that feeling of being left out.
Yeah.
Turns out even witnessing that stuff, it can really stick with you.
It really can. And you know what? It's not just, people saying that. It's like, it's actually a thing. Back in 2017, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control.
Right.
They officially classify bullying as, get this, an adverse childhood experience. An ACE.
Okay, ACE. See, now that sounds serious. What's that actually mean, though?
Well, it's kind of huge because it's not just kids being kids anymore,
Yeah.
It means recognizing that this stuff can really do some damage down the line. And we're talking big-time health problems, heart disease, diabetes, even stuff like depression and substance abuse, all linked to ACEs.
Wow, so this isn't just hurt feelings. This is like your well-being years later.
Exactly. And this article you shared, it gets into all that, like the trauma side of things. It even quotes this psychiatrist, Gabor Mate. He says something like, and this is powerful, trauma is not what happens to you. It's what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you.
Whoa. Okay, let's break that down. What's that mean, like when we're talking about bullying?
So it means, even if it wasn't like punches and kicks, right? The emotional part, how you feel inside during bullying, that can be traumatic too. That constant fear, that feeling of, am I safe? It eats away at your self-esteem. That stuff can really mess with how you see yourself, how you go through life.
And this article, it dives into that, right? How even people who seem successful, they can still be dealing with that stuff from way back.
Totally. There's this psychotherapist, Mihaela Ivan Holtz. She works with creative types, artists and such, and she sees it all the time. They've made it, right?
Right.
But inside, they're still carrying the weight of being bullied.
And it's funny you say that because, when you think creative, you think confidence, right? Like putting yourself out there.
Right.
But this article, it talks about some pretty big names, and they weren't afraid to say, hey, bullying messed me up.
Yeah, it's kind of what makes it so powerful. They're these huge stars.
Exactly.
Like take Millie Bobby Brown. She was what barely a teenager when Stranger Things blew up. And the cyberbullying, relentless.
And she's got this quote in here, it just gets me every time. She says, it's really hard to be hated on when you don't know who you are yet. I mean, can you imagine? You're just trying to figure life out and you've got all this negativity coming at you.
It's rough. And it's like this pressure to fit in. It's everywhere for young people, especially online.
Totally.
And it's not just online either. Like Lady Gaga, she talks about this in the article, how she was bullied, like physically bullied.
Yeah.
And the shame, she even says it messed with her schoolwork.
She says, I was called really awful names in front of tons of people. And my schoolwork totally tanked for a while. It's like this stuff, it can affect every part of your life.
And it doesn't matter who you are or what you do. This article, they talk about Evan Rachel Wood, Zooey Deschanel, Lily Cole, all these amazing women, and they've all dealt with this.
It's like you said, it's universal, this experience, and the effects. They're real, but the article, it doesn't leave you feeling hopeless, does it? There's this like thread of hope running through it.
Oh, absolutely. Like, this stuff can have consequences long-term even, but it doesn't have to define you. There are ways to deal with it, to heal.
So, okay, what do you do then? If you're like, this is still affecting you, even years later. So, okay, what do you do then? If you're like, this is still affecting you even years later.
Well, therapy, right. It can make a huge difference. This article, they mention EMDR. It stands for like eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Okay.
Yeah. And Holtz, that psychotherapist we talked about, she uses that with her clients, helps them process, work through that past trauma. And it's not like wiping the slate clean, forgetting it happened. It's more like rewiring things.
Interesting.
Yeah. So your brain doesn't freak out every time those memories pop up.
Yeah.
Taking back control,
It's like taming those emotions that felt so big and scary.
Exactly. And even outside of therapy, just like talking about it, sharing your story, connecting with people who get it, who've been there, that can be so powerful. You realize, like, you're not alone in this.
I feel that even just us talking about this now, these stories, it's like a little bit of that weight is lifted,
Right. And that quote, that Millie Bobby Brown one.
Yeah.
About not knowing who she was yet with all that online hate. That one really got to me. Like, we got to help kids build that strong sense of self early on. It's so important.
Absolutely. Makes you think, like, what can we all do to create spaces where kids feel safe to figure themselves out, especially online, right? Because if they're more sure of themselves, maybe, just maybe, that bullying, it won't hit as hard.
It's a conversation we need to have for sure with like everyone, friends, family, teachers, everyone, because I mean, that's how things change, right? When we start talking and then, actually do something about it.
Couldn't agree more. It's all about taking that next step. And who knows, maybe this deep dive is that first step for some people listening. Food for thought, right? So until next time, thanks for joining us as we keep exploring these big questions, diving deep into what makes us tick